Hey, what's up guys? So in this video, I want to take a closer look at radar detector reviews themselves, and specifically what types of information I choose to include in the reviews, as well as what types of information I intentionally leave out of the reviews for one reason or another. And I want to go a little bit more into the thought process behind what gets included and what information is left out. So starting off, I'm an engineer, and so I'm going to be focusing by default on the technical aspects of a radar detector. So basically what you've got is some sort of beeping box, and I want to know how good is this beeping box? You know, what's the performance like in terms of range on different frequency ranges? What kind of changes will you see if you start fiddling with the different settings? You know, what about responsiveness and reactivity? What about false alert filtering and blind spot filtering and the implementation of GPS lockouts and the algorithms that the engineers have designed and how that changes over time with different firmware updates and like the apps that are included? Like, I want to go into the nitty-gritty technical aspects of a detector. That's how I think, that's what I'm looking at, and I think that's what's ultimately going to matter as far as this box helping keep you protected on the road. You know, how well can it do its job as far as detecting radar and filtering out, false alerts, right? That, I think, is ultimately, I mean, there's other stuff too with RDD immunity and whatever else too, right? But ultimately, how good is this beeping box? Whatever brand, whatever model, it doesn't matter. I mean, there's tons of them, right? And that's what I want to know is how good is the radar detector? Now, there are some technical aspects I'll leave out if I think ultimately it doesn't really make a difference in practice. Maybe a couple good examples with things like pop detection. How good is the radar detector at detecting pop? I used to test it, but ultimately, who cares? It makes zero difference in practice, and I don't think it's a good way of actually deciding which detector to buy or which one to choose. Similar with like laser detection, there are differences between radar detectors in terms of the laser sensitivity, but ultimately, I don't think that's a good reason to choose one detector over another. It's difficult to test and do it accurately. And ultimately, even if you go through like all the time and energy to try to get really good results, you're still going to be like, well, who cares? Just go get laser jammers or run Waze. A free app like Waze is going to be better than any radar detector against laser, you know? So there's differences there, but I don't think that's a good investment of time and energy to test, and I don't think it's a good way to actually choose one detector over another, despite the fact that there are differences. Now, what about non-technical aspects of detectors? Those can be important too, but I don't focus on them as much in my reviews, and so I want to talk a little bit more about that. So first, I know one of the big things lately has been customer service. I think that's an important thing. So let's say you buy a detector, but then if you have issues down the line, how is the company going to help you out in case you need to do a return or a replacement or repairs or something, right? That, I think, is important as well. And typically, it's going to be some process of you send the detector back to the manufacturer, they repair it, and you get a replacement back. Might take more time, might take less. Like, there's definitely going to be some differences there. But overall, in terms of customer service, I find that can be difficult to pin down as well in a very simple to explain statement. And what I mean is, this is going to vary depending on what place you buy the detector from. First of all, do you buy straight from the manufacturer? Do you buy from a place like Amazon or Best Buy? Do you buy from a smaller shop online? Do you buy from a local installer where you can just go talk to them in person? Like, depending on where you buy, that's really going to impact kind of your customer service experience. Second, let's say just the manufacturer, you send it back to them for warranty service. Those results might also vary. Sometimes you may have a good experience, sometimes there's a bad experience. I've noticed people online, some people are like, oh my gosh, insert manufacturer here, I had a great experience, let me go share my experience. Other people will go and post bad experiences, and I found overall, if you go look online, you're going to see more bad experiences. Typically, people are only going to be reporting if they have bad experiences. They go online to complain on forums and wherever else, right? But if you have a good experience, people are much less likely to go and share that experience. And that's just, I think, human nature. And so you're going to see the bad stuff emphasized more online. Additionally, let's say two people have an experience. Maybe they both have an issue with the detector. They both have the same issue. They both go to the same manufacturer. They both try to get service for it. One person may have a better experience than another just due to luck of the draw, due to which customer service agent you get. Maybe one, you could have the same agent, but one day they're having a good day, another one they're having a bad day. They're tired, hungry, whatever, right? Like, this stuff is going to vary. And even if all that stuff is the same, one person is going to be happy with the service, another person is going to be unhappy with the exact same service and experience, right? So it can be tough to just like get a ton of information and data just looking at YouTube comments and forum posts and all that, and try to distill it into like, well, they offer good customer service, they offer bad customer service. Unless there's something super glaring and obvious, then you're like, hey, there's an obvious pattern, an issue here that needs to be addressed. But overall, it's tough to like pin that down. And so If there's obvious issues, sure, let's talk about it. But otherwise, it's like some people are going to have a good experience, some people are going to have a bad experience, and that just seems to be how the stuff works in general, even though there are going to be some differences between manufacturers and companies try to improve this, hire new people over time, right? So it's a little difficult to like pin it down specifically and accurate, especially in like a simple statement, and have that be universally applicable. Another thing that I found is kind of difficult to talk about, and how do you like put this into a review, is the way a company does marketing. And I don't mean like if a company does completely deceptive marketing practices like Rocky Mountain Radar. Like that's an obvious exception where it's obvious that they're lying to customers and trying to deceive and scam people. That's a really obvious issue. But I mean as far as like bigger name manufacturers. Some companies do like to stretch the truth more than others. Almost every company will say we offer great range, we do a good job of filtering out false alerts, and that's kind of nonsensical, pointless stuff. Everybody's going to say that same sort of thing, and that's where testing comes into play to say, well, how much better range? How much better filtering? That's where the testing comes into play to really kind of get those nuances that you won't see in marketing. Marketing in general, they're going to be focusing more on like highlighting the positive aspects of the detector. They don't want to focus on the negative. And so everybody's going to be focusing primarily on the positive things. Here's all the features. Here's what we do amazing at. The bad stuff, maybe let's not talk about that so much, right? So I get that. I find, though, that some companies will maybe stretch the truth beyond what's technically true in a way to try to make their product look even better than what it actually is. Some companies do this more than others. As you guys have been around the industry, I'm sure you can think of a number of examples. And what I've seen sometimes is people are like, hey, Vortex, these guys are being deceptive and dishonest. They're stretching the truth beyond what's actually true in a way to try to generate sales. And Vortex, you should stop recommending their products until their marketing is more accurate. I've thought about that, but I don't think that's a good thing to do. And the reason I say that is that can start getting you down a slippery slope of saying, well, hey company, I don't like your business practices, so I'm just going to like stop recommending your products. Even if the product is good, I don't like your business practices, and so I'm going to use my recommendations as a manipulative tactic to get you to change your business practices until I agree with your business practices, and then I'll recommend your detectors again. That starts getting into a slippery slope of, I think some of those things are justified. If you want to protest against a company because of their religious beliefs or political ideologies, or because they use child labor in their factories, like that stuff is important too, and I get it. But that starts to open up a completely different can of worms beyond how good is a beeping box, right? In my mind, I'm focusing on the technical aspects, and part of me does wonder, does that let companies get away with questionably accurate marketing tactics because I'm not going to pull my recommendations, and they're still going to make money, and I would still recommend their products? And that's, I think, the downside of it. And so kind of my compromise on that is like, if they're advertising something on their website and they say we have this much range, or we're this fast, or we're undetectable by radar detectors, or whatever it is, I'm just like, okay, well, what's the facts? Let's test it. Here's what they claim. Here's the capabilities. It may be true. It may not be true, but let's just focus on the facts. Marketing is going to say whatever they're going to say. I'm going to focus on technical capabilities. I'm going to focus on features and performance and what it actually does when you buy a box and you stick it on your windshield, and how well does it work. That is what my review is going to be about. And I'm not here to tell companies what they should do and how they should operate and how they should run their companies. I want to focus on reviewing the products themselves. And I think the downside of that is sometimes it may actually, if I'm not like punishing them, so to speak, I guess, for like questionable marketing tactics, I think that's the downside of that. But ultimately, I still want to go ahead and share, like, here's what they're saying, here's the capabilities, buy it based on what they're saying. And I think that's kind of one of the limitations, maybe, of my reviews. But I'm still thinking about that kind of stuff a lot. I've seen other stuff that companies would do, like, do they sue their competitors for different reasons? Are the lawsuits valid? But I'm not a lawyer, and some of that stuff is behind closed doors. And what about, do companies actually go after customers and reviewers with legal threats if they say bad stuff about their products online, which may actually be true? But I've actually seen reviewers getting legal threats because they're reviewing products and the manufacturers don't like it. So like, there's a bunch of stuff that kind of goes into this behind the scenes. It's beyond just how well does a beeping box work. And that's what I want to focus on, is just the technical capabilities. But there's other aspects about this too that I think is important, that I don't give as much weight and importance to for some of these reasons that I've talked about here. I ultimately want to focus on how well is the radar detector itself. That's my question. You buy it, you put it on the windshield, will it do its job that you need it to do? I think talking about things like customer service and marketing is important. It's part of the overall equation, right? Let's talk about, here's what they advertise, here's the capabilities, here's what it's actually like in practice. Okay, if you have an issue with it, what are people reporting online overall? Results are going to vary, of course, with any company, especially the bigger the company is, the more this may vary. But nevertheless, let's talk about it, but I don't think it should alone be like a deciding factor, but I do think it's important to mention. And so I do think that I've been talking about things like customer service and marketing, but I've kind of been downplaying it to some extent. But I've definitely been thinking more about how I can kind of include this more as something that should be mentioned in a review and just kind of one of the other pieces of the puzzle, you know? But what do you guys think? What kind of things should I cover in a review that I don't cover as much? Or what things maybe do I focus on a lot that you think are less important and I should maybe spend less time focusing on that? You know, I'm always thinking about this kind of stuff, how I can give you guys the best possible reviews and give you guys as much as possible without making the reviews like 4 hours long, you know? You gotta choose some stuff to cut, try to keep it in a reasonable amount of time. But let me know your thoughts as far as, you know, what do you like in the reviews? How is it going? Presentation, what information should be covered that's not, or what information am I leaving out that you think is important and should be added in? Always open to constructive and intelligent feedback. And this is just a little bit as far as my thought process behind what kind of stuff is covered and what kind of stuff is left out and why. Basically stuff I think is important, I'll try to cover. Things that are less important, practically speaking, I'll try to leave out. That's, I guess, a simple thing. And I think that kind of logic makes sense. But anyway, yeah, that's my thought process on reviews and kind of what goes into them and what's left out. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. Hope you guys are doing great, and I'll see you in the next video.